So, Shabbat Shalom, and I wanted to start with a round of thank yous. I want to start with a round of thank yous. First, I want to thank all of you who have been learning with us since March of 20 in this crazy season. We're really grateful for the continued dialogue and learning. I'm sorry? That we're having. I want to thank Andrew and Brian and David, of course, for the tech setup that makes all of this possible. We're so grateful, Andrew, Brian, David. I also want to thank, Michelle, Elias, Elisa, Dan, for walking with us in this crazy season through this format. And I want to kind of end with a hope and a prayer that this is the last time we're doing this. And, of course, it all depends on the science and on the numbers. But if the science and the numbers permit it, we hope next year, the idea would be that the five of us will learn together. It will be still live streamed for those who can't or choose not to come in person, and we respect that. But we want to encourage those people who can come to come in person, because at its best, Temple Emmanuel is an in-person community, Beit Knesset, a house of gathering the old-fashioned way. So hopefully in the fall, September the 10th is the first session of the new year. We'll be in person if the science and numbers permit it. The format will be, we'll have a conversation based on texts, and then afterwards my wonderful colleagues will go off to be with the bar and bat mitzvah families. They'll go off to run the service, and I'll stay around for a while and dialogue with you. So please get your head around the fact that we would love you to come in person on September the 10th. Hopefully this will be our last time doing solely online. We'll still do also online, but we would love the emphasis in our community to be in person. Let me frame our last class. Here's my question for you, and it's I'm not being facetious. What is the spiritual resonance, the Jewish lens, on a day at the beach? What is the spiritual resonance, the Jewish resonance, of a week at the Cape, or a week at the Berkshires, or camping, or hiking, or however all of us choose to spend our time off? One argument, I kind of imagine, the prophet Jeremiah coming down, or the prophet Elijah, since that's Elias's favorite, coming down, and saying, geez Louise, with, COVID deaths past 1 million, and Uvalde and all these shootings, and the paralysis of our country, and the mass violence in our country, and the shootings in our country, and hyperinflation, and $5 a gallon gasoline, and it's $75 to fill your tank, and, what are you doing at the beach? And the question that we're going to think about is, what are we doing at the beach? And what is the Jewish lens for understanding a day at the beach, particularly given the world that we live in? So let's thank God for the gift of learning Torah together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. V'harevna Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu u'b'fi amcha beit Yisrael. ונהיה אנחנו וצאצאינו וצאצאי עמך בית ישראל, כולנו יודעי שמך ולמדי תורתך לשמה. ברוך אתה אדוני המלמד תורה לעמו ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. So, dear friends and dear colleagues, in the Talmud teaser, I sent out 2 pages of text from Sefaria that are on a Jewish ethic of self-care. And we're going to look at them more closely, but just from 30,000 feet. If I were to ask you what for an elegant unifying hypothesis of all these texts, what would you say that hypothesis is? What's an elegant distillation of Jewish wisdom on self-care based on these texts? And how does that answer our question for a Jewish assessment of a day, a week, a month, a summer at the beach? Lord Nesson.
Personal care is required in order to have a spiritual life.
When you say required, Dan, I wanna focus on that word.
Okay. I was trying to find the right word.
Right, no, required. No, I think required. So personal care is required for For how did you finish the sentence?
To be able to have a spiritual life.
To have a spiritual life. Now,
In
when
other
you
words,
say
if you-
required, are
yeah.
you saying that we need it just like it's a human thing, or are you making a different claim that our religious tradition itself mandates it's a mitzvah to go to the beach? There's two different reads of that. One is we should go to the beach because otherwise we're going to dry out. The second read is required means it's a mitzvah to go to the beach. Go now, Lech Lecha to the Cape Cod, Lech Lecha to the Berkshires, Lech Lecha to New Hampshire or Vermont, Lech Lecha to get out of your normal rounds so that you'll have a spiritual life. Which are you saying, that it's a good thing to do or that it's a religious obligation to do,
So
according to these sources?
I'll give you the Jewish answer, both, because in other words, if you're physically in pain or in discomfort, that you mostly focus on that and not focus on being able to have a more spiritual, relationship with God. And also, according to these texts, it's something that we should do. It's something that, in other words, it is a mandate. So taking care of yourself will help to lead towards a spiritual connection with your community and with God.
Okay.
To me, the puzzle here is you mentioned all the troubles in the world that clearly affect all of us, okay? Because we cannot be indifferent to all of those. But, the fact that we take time off and the fact that we may go to the beach and relax and do other activities doesn't liberate us in a way from our thoughts. So in a way, vacation could be physically resting, but not necessarily means mentally.
Yeah. And what do you do with that dissonance that you're away, but you're emotionally not away? You're away physically, but your thoughts are still on the worries of the world. How do you navigate that?
I don't know, but that's the hardest part of it.
Yeah. Elisa, Michelle, do you have just, before we look more granularly, some big take about the basic posture of these texts?
I'm not sure that I see self-care sort of feels like a next level. It's like self-indulgence. It's giving yourself like permission to have the chocolates and to lie on the couch and just like do the things that are just like extra. I feel like I read in these texts permission to take care of your physical needs. And that feels like an important distinction. Like, yes, you need to bathe and you need to honor your bodily processes and you need to be real about what your physical world demands, but I don't see a permission to just go chill.
Just a quick comment on that. I thought that always chocolate and couch is a winter activity.
So, yes. So you don't, let me just, I just want to understand what you're saying. You don't see a permission to go and chill at the beach? Because so Dan is saying it's a religious mandate, and you're saying you don't even think it's a permitted.
I don't even think these texts I don't even think they understand that concept. I think they're saying that you have a physical being and it has needs and you must attend to those needs and you should give thanks to God for giving you the opportunity to attend to your physical needs. But I don't see it as saying like, and you might have mental health needs. Like I don't know that they're there yet.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's why we have a class. Michelle.
Yeah, so you asked the question in your email, did Rabbi Akiva go to the beach?
Right.
Right? And no. Right? No, he didn't.
And
right?
you know that how?
And we know that how because he worked all of his life until he was able, thanks to his wife's sacrifice, to be able to go and learn all of his life. And we have a very strong tradition of Bitul Torah. You do not, which means don't waste an opportunity to learn Torah. And that means that even when you are perhaps not toiling in the salt mines professionally, you're always learning, growing, pushing, moving. I mean, much like Elias has said, there's never a moment in which traditionally our texts would say to you, hey, just read a good romance novel while you kick up your heels.
I think
This is why I thank Hashem.
Shabbat,
why we
Shabbat,
just thanked
Shabbat,
Hashem for this class, because I completely read this as I agree with Dan's read. That's why you are Lord Dan Nesson. That these texts obligate us, don't only permit us, but obligate us, because as it says in Hallel, Lo hametim hallelujah. Dead people don't praise God. All of our health, we all hang by a thread. We are all fragile flowers. and therefore we have to attend to our health so that we can do the important work of
Yes,
life.
but Eliza brought up a really important gloss here, right? What does it mean to attend to your needs? I think, hands down, in these texts, it is absolutely clear that if you are not attending to your basic Maslow's hierarchy physical needs, im
Right.
ein kemach ein Torah, we have the beautiful prayer, that Debbie Friedman sings so lovely, that, we have parts of our bodies that work or don't work, and im yisatem echad mehem, right? Like if even one of them is closed, אי אפשר להתקיים, we can't stand and worship God. Like,
Wes.
yes, on a basic, wait, hold on. On a
Right.
basic physical needs, 1,000%, you have an obligation to care for those. And I think, Eliza, your gloss is really super important, because that doesn't necessarily mean that you get to put down the sacred tasks of either the world or of growing your own soul.
Wes,
Yeah.
question for you. I'm going to do you. So you know that sometimes you do a Devar Torah and say, let's go to the next Aliyah, we'll come back.
Yes.
So I want to post a question to you and to all of you. So I'm a more practical person, and this is a vignette that happened to me years ago. And let's see how we can resolve it together. I flew with my family to a lovely destination 5 hours away, summer, beach, right? Rabbi Akiva. I go there.
No. Rabbi Akiva was toiling 12 hours
I go
a day.
there.
Okay.
Right. I go there. So I'm not going to mention the destination or the name, but a temple member comes to me, runs into me in
5 hours away?
5 hours away, without saying a word, says, "Great concert last night. Can I give you a tip for a better one next year?" So I'm physically trying to rest and mentally trying to rest.
Yes.
So the question I'm posing to all of you is, what do we do when we need to rest, but also in the middle of the rest, a temple work-related issue comes up? Do I say, no, I cannot say this in the microphone, but, go away, all right? Please, I'm on vacation, or I engage in the conversation. We'll come back to this.
And it's not just clergy, Elias. I mean, I think anybody who works today lives that life. The emails are constantly
The tax
beeping.
return.
The
Nobody
overwork
ever gets
is
away.
correct.
Right. The only way you get away is when you retire, and then you have other problems. The only way you get away is when you retire, and then you have other problems. Basically, there's no peace in this world. Because if you're working, you're never at peace, because some version of that happens to every person. You're so right, Michelle. In every profession, some text comes, some ping ring comes, and it disturbs your peace. Or if that you're not getting pinged, then that disturbs your peace, because people need to be needed. And if you're not needed, that super disturbs your peace. So there's no peace except for maybe Shabbos. Okay, what I want to do, yes.
There's one. So to me, this reminds me in some ways of the concept of childhood, which came about after World War II. And up until that point, there was no sense of childhood. There were just small humans and larger humans.
How do you
and
know this? You just make this
She
stuff
lived.
up.
I
She's
do not make
102.
You say
I
it
do
with
not
great
know. I
authority,
do
but you
not.
just completely
That's
made
She's
that up.
accurate.
102.
Guys, back
She
me up.
lived.
Please email and confirm. It's true. Childhood was not a concept until after World War II. It really wasn't. People just had this idea that there were children. Children had less ability than adults, but there wasn't a sense of childhood. It was after the
As an
trauma.
innocent phase.
As an innocent phase, or that like you should go to Disneyland, or that there should be all these activities. That was a post-World War II concept. And I think that in some ways I feel like self-care and this concept of like time to recharge and all that, it's lovely, but that is also a concept that came as a consequence of this idea that there are beautiful, like you have to create these idyllic worlds.
Okay,
So
so
I
I
was
want
agreeing
to.
with you all the way up till
Right.
there, and then I would
Okay,
say like
so dear
Shabbos
friends,
is the most ancient
can I just bring in our
renewal.
friends who are watching this and learning with this online? Here's the question for you, and you judge yourself. Is it the pshat, that is the simple meaning of these texts, like these texts understood in their own context, to say self-care is a Jewish value and it's a mitzvah and it's a commandment? Or is that drash? Is that something that we in 2022 are imposing? Dan and I read these texts by Dan I mean Lord Nesson and I read these texts to say that the pshat of these texts is that it is a mitzvah to go to the beach. and you're saying that's an imposition. So let's just look at it. Let's just look at it, okay?
The first one.
I want to read the first one, which is on page 2. This is from Vayikra Rabbah. Another thing, but if he is impoverished, here it is written from Proverbs, the merciful man does good to his own soul. This refers to Hillel the elder. That's our Hillel, right? Who at the time that he is departing from his students would walk with them. They said to him, Rabbi, where are you walking to? He said to them, to fulfill a commandment. They said to him, and what commandment is this? He said to them, I am going to Canyon Ranch to bathe in the bathhouse. They said to him, but is this really a commandment? He said to them, yes.
So you can
In other
respond
words,
to my question.
Hillel,
I'm 5 hours away.
Yes, Hillel is saying, now bathing in the bathhouse is not such a big deal for us. Most of us take a bath every day. But in the ancient world, like bathing was Canyon Ranch. Bathing was spa. You mentioned sauna. You mentioned spa, sauna, the treatments, right? Facial, the hot stones on your back. That's what this is. And he is saying, and he finishes his class, and he goes off to get his facial, to go to the sauna, and they say, is that where you go? Why? And he says, to bathe in the bathhouse, is this really a commandment? He says to them, yes. So I mean, and they ask him, Amru lo v'chizo mitzvah he? Is this really a commandment? Is this a mitzvah? That's Dan's read. And Amar lahem hein, which is Aramaic for yes. So if you and the quote of it is, and the basis of it is in Mishlei, Proverbs, the merciful man does good to his own soul. So why is the pshat of this not that it's a mitzvah to go take care of your...
Because nobody believes that.
I would say it
I wanna see the
absolutely
source.
is.
It is.
I mean, as the mother of an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old boy, I would say I am firmly in favor.
Or you can say, I'm firmly keep working.
Right? I mean, like there is a sense in which basic human hygiene is a good thing.
But this isn't just about hygiene. This is clearly not just about hygiene. This is clearly... He's going to Canyon Ranch. He's going to his version of Canyon Ranch. He's going to a spa.
But there's not really there's not an alter. If you had like the home shower option or the public bathhouse option, then I would be totally with you, and I would be like, yes, he's going to the spa. He's going, but in the ancient world, public bathhouses were where personal hygiene happened, and so I don't think it necessarily means that he's like going to relax. He could be like, yes, it's a mitzvah. I'm going to get in and out, and then I'm back to my Torah study.
Lord Nesson?
So I want to actually. So I want to.
You're always so wise and so sagacious.
I want
Please lead us
to
home
back
here.
it a little. So first of all, we've all mentioned Shabbos a few times. So in other words, is it a mitzvah to rest? Yes. I mean, the Torah gives us Shabbat. That's one day. It's not a week. It's not a week away, but it is a commandment to rest. The other thing is, if we go back to the first Mishnah on, on the first page.
Read the whole thing, Dan.
Okay, so this relates to another episode portraying unusual conduct by Rabbi Gamliel. He bathed on the first night after his wife died. His students said to him, have you not taught us, our teacher, that a mourner is prohibited to bathe? He answered them, I am not like other people. I am delicate. For me, not bathing causes actual physical distress, and even a mourner need not suffer physical distress as part of his mourning. So what I think is happening here is that... that again is saying that it's a mitzvah to be able to physically take care of yourself, but I think in this case it's more emotional.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, can
totally
I just
emotional?
I want to thank
mental
you.
Health. Mental
health. I literally followed this Mishnah when my mother died in 2016. It's definitely the tradition not to shave when you're a mourner, and you just let your hair grow, and that's in fact you look like a mourner because you're right. I cannot stand not shaving. I mean, the only day of the year that I don't shave is Yom Kippur, and then I shave the first thing before I eat. I shave. I cannot stand not shaving. Every Rosh Hashanah I shave. Shabbos I shave. Only Yom Kippur morning I don't shave, but Yom Kippur when the shofar's blown I shave.
So no hopes to see you with a beer eventually?
Right. When my mother died, I shaved. And my basis for it was Rabbi Gamliel. If it's good enough for Rabbi Gamliel, it's good enough for me. But at a deep level, is this not saying that, just as you said, Dan, it's not just the physical, it's emotional. It's emotional. That how you are feeling emotionally, your inner life, is just super important. And we're not only permitted but required to attend to that.
But let me do some parallel here. He's supposed to be a rabbi, okay?
Yeah.
And
He is a rabbi.
he's
That's
all right.
By the way, Shira says that to me all the time. Aren't you supposed to be a rabbi? That's the main thing she says. Aren't you supposed to be a
Shira
rabbi?
and I had some conversations. Anyways, but I don't know you rabbis, but cantors, we work on Shabbat. And so we having fun today. It's such a wonderful class. Now, seriously, all of us struggle with this idea because you then said before talking, you were saying Shabbat is supposed to be a day of rest. But for us, it's not a day of rest at all, neither for this guy that who is supposed to be a rabbi. Anyways, so what do we do with that? Like Michelle says, what do we do with that?
Means us personally, as opposed
Us
to like,
personally, we don't care about the congregants. It's all about us.
Oh, I mean, like us.
Anyways,
Yeah.
so what do we do with us? Because when do we rest? A day off on Monday. But I mean, where is our mental
Monday.
Monday?
Or not.
Well,
Or not.
Or not? If there is a funeral or we go to a recording studio.
But I do want to actually take that to all of our people, because for so many, although it's not that they're leading services, most of the people in our community are carrying some cell phone in their pocket that can demand of them on Shabbat. There are many people who are getting pinged beyond what would be ideal or what they would like in their world. They would like to be able to unplug. And I think, Dan, thank you for bringing this text, because such a powerful and beautiful text, because it speaks to that there's a general communal standard that we would hope everyone can follow. And then there's the individual who you are within the context of the global rules. And actually it's a great conservative movement text in some ways, because there's some flexibility to acknowledge the individual within the collective.
Right.
And that individual has pain, and that individual has needs, and that individual has requirements. And some of those requirements may be that you need to go to Canyon Ranch.
Right.
And if that for you is
Right.
your requirement, or that you need to shave in order to feel whole with yourself,
Right.
the tradition says go ahead. What it
Right.
doesn't say is that going to Canyon Ranch is in and of itself a value.
What it says is attending to your health, physically and emotionally, is a value. Yes. By the way, implicit in all of this is comma, so that you can do the work of your life, so that you can do the holy things of your life. It's an end in and of itself, and it's a means to the end, so that you can function, and because the dead don't praise
Right.
God.
And I've been like pigeonholing myself into the no over here. So I want to
Right.
I want to liberate and complexify. I want to complexify
Yes.
here, and to say, Shabbos is the most ancient technology, which tells us that, yes, every human has a need to unplug, to be with family, to create a version, an ancient version of Canyon Ranch,
Right.
which is being with yourself, with your family, and with God.
Right.
By the
And
way, where is
even-
Canyon Ranch?
Even with that, even
Where's-
with that Shabbat, there is a wonderful inherent ambiguity about Shabbat, which is, do we rest on Shabbat because resting is itself the highest value, or do we rest on Shabbat so that we can really work hard and be productive the other 6 days? And the answer is yes. And I think that same kind of thing is going on here, that we find our rest, whether it's shaving or bathing when you're a mourner, or Rabban Hillel, rather, going off to the spa. We do that because it's inherently good to tend to yourself, and it allows you to do the sacred
Wes,
work.
question
Yeah.
for you, and then for them, because you are in the same position here. I don't see in these sources, and please clarify for me, where is there an implication that by resting physically, you are resting emotionally?
Okay. So here you go. Let's look at. Thank you so much for that question. I'm going to read now Rambam's the last text on here, which, just to note, I love. And some of my colleagues have indicated dissenting views, so I'm eager to hear. I love this text. Some of my colleagues have indicated a dissenting view, but I think it's responsive to your question. This is from Maimonides, Rambam. I would just say Rambam has pretty good street cred as a Jewish thinker, Michelle. Okay. Seeing that the maintenance of the body in a healthy and sound condition is a God-chosen way, for lo, it is impossible that one should understand or know aught of the divine knowledge concerning the Creator when he is sick. It is necessary for man to distance himself from things which destroy the body, and accustom himself to things which are healthful and life-imparting. These are, never shall man partake food save when hungry, nor drink save when thirsty. He shall not defer elimination even 1 minute, but the moment he feels the need to evacuate urine or feces, he must rise immediately.
Yeah,
Now,
very
can I just, so let me just give you I think it's incredibly real, incredibly real and human, and I love this. I mean, I do and will devote all my life to this teaching. This is about we are both body and soul, but to answer your question, he's saying, I think this is Maslow's hierarchy 1,000 years before Maslow. This is Maslow's hierarchy 1,000 years before. He is saying every human is body and soul. But guess what, people? Maimonides says here, you can't get to the soul until you get to the body. And that is just so true. I see this every day. I feel this every day, and I see this in other people every day. You can't be any happier than your body is healthy, and you can't be any more spiritual than your body is healthy. And people who are really ailing, I mean, there might be some, spiritual virtuoso Mother Teresa out there. That's an outlier. For most people, when they're in a lot of deep physical pain or anguish or there's some physical problem, then you can't really be thinking about Hashem. And if you think about it, his text begins with, how do we know God? And it ends with being in the bathroom and eliminating your waste. And he says, if you can't eliminate your waste, you can't know God. That's just so human, so real, so true. So I think the pshat of Rambam connects this directly. Do you not? How do you see this, Elias, since you asked the question?
Like peeing before services?
Yeah. For example.
I don't see the spiritual connection here.
You don't see it?
I'm sorry, I don't.
Explain.
You guys?
So it's interesting
You
to
do?
me is that it feels like this is a very crisp expression of strict physical need only. You only eat when you're hungry. Like if you just happen to see this beautiful healthy salad but you're not hungry, don't eat it. And if you're not getting that giant water bottle and pulling it around because it's good to have a liter of water, however much you're supposed to drink every day, you're only drinking when you're absolutely thirsty. It feels to me like he's saying there's a baseline body requirement you must attend to, but beyond that, there's no ice cream cone after dinner. There's no, it's just strictly what you need.
It was not very
you're
fun
agreeing with
in
me in a way,
Rambam's house.
right?
It's not what.
It was not very fun in Rambam's house.
Yeah. Okay. So,
In the sense, well,
Right.
I mean, interestingly, what you're picking up, this conflicts with a number of texts that we'll have in our tradition that speak to oneg, to anug, and the enjoyment of the world that's out
Okay.
there and that's there. And the other thing that he doesn't pick up here, although I personally share your excitement about this text on the level that you base it on, the Maslow's hierarchy. That's exactly what the prayer that Debbie Friedman made so
Right.
famous, the Asher Yatzar, speaks to, and it's true.
Right.
If you're too sick, you cannot worship God. It's just a fact.
Right.
But there are also spiritual ailments that make it tough to take care of the body as well.
Say more about that.
So I think we see this with our teens all the time when they're going through crisis. And we have, Eliza can speak to this better than I can, but things like cutting or other self-harm, eating disorders
Right.
that come about. Eating disorders, the core root of that is a spiritual malaise in many cases, although there are some physical, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not weighing in on where
Right.
eating disorders come from, but I will tell you that there's a spiritual malaise that
Right.
actually contributes to or perhaps even causes the disorder itself.
So all of which is, I want to come back to our orienting question, which is reading this to say that a day at the beach, a day at Canyon Ranch is a mitzvah, is that pshat or is that a rabbinic imposition, a drash? It feels to me like this clearly says it's pshat, because this is saying that body and soul are deeply connected, right? Body and soul are deeply connected. And if body and soul are deeply connected, it's a mitzvah to take care of the body, because God gave you your body, you should take care of it. And it's a mitzvah to take care of your body so that your soul can thrive and you can do that higher order stuff on the Maslow's hierarchy. So it feels to me like these texts are clearly in support of saying that, like, what our community in fact does in June, July, and August, namely kind of check out and go to the beach, or whatever that version is, that is not only essential for self-health and self-care, but it really is an obligation. According to these sources, I see it as pshat. Now, Elias, you don't read this Rambam the way I do, so tell us, what do you think he's saying?
I'm just so happy that Lisa and I agree. So, זה היום עשה אדוני נגילה ונשמחה בו.
It's a miracle.
No, I'm paying close attention, but I don't see it. I'm sorry, Wes, I don't see it. And just to talk a little bit about what Michelle says, I don't know if it ever happened this to you, but sometimes when I'm really upset about a situation that makes me sad or makes me anxious or depressed, I think about, for example, exercising. I don't want to do that. So that's the other way around, the flipping of the coin, that sometimes you need to be in a good place spiritually and mentally in order to take care of yourself physically.
Absolutely. That's what Michelle was just making that point, that the mind-body or the neshama-goof connection works both ways.
I also there's also a flip side, which is that sometimes things that we would label as self-care and that can be quite helpful are actually physically destructive, right? Like when you're going through a really rough patch and you're like, I just want to drink right now. Like, I just want to have an alcoholic beverage and I want to get out of my clarity. And that's something that's actually physically harmful, probably spiritually harmful too. But actually in the moment, it's like, this actually feels good. And I think that there's the complexity in the text about, don't just think that whatever you want to do is maybe the best choice. That sometimes indulging that is good and sometimes indulging that is not great.
Yeah. So,
Annalisa and I thought that there was nothing that we can talk today that will be actually,
Elias, since you've expressed some skepticism about the connection between goof and neshama, body and soul in these texts. The last text I want to look at, and then we'll step back, is the prayer that Michelle mentioned, which is, of course, the prayer that we say every morning. It's in the Siddur, which is Asher Yatzar, and that's the song that Debbie Friedman did. So could you just read that in English, Elias? It's the third text on our page. And what, in your view, is the pshat of this prayer?
The third on page 1?
Yes. Blessed
Can
are
you
you,
clarify
Adonai.
where's Canyon Ranch?
I'm sorry?
Only if you sing it.
Yes.
Where is Canyon Ranch? Anyway.
It's in the Berkshires, yes.
There you go. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, King of the universe, formed man with wisdom and created within him openings and hollows. It is obvious and known in the presence of your glorious throne that if one of them were robbed, or if one of them were blocked, it would be impossible to exist and stand in your presence even for a short while. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh and performs wonders.
Right. And just so that we're all clear back at home, the seed in life for this prayer is after one has a bowel movement, right? That is, you do not take bowel movements for granted. That this clearly is the pshat. You are thanking God for the gift of a bowel movement, and it's one of the first prayers that traditional Jews say. And people who are traditional Jews say this prayer with deep kavanah. So, what do you think, Elias, is the pshat of this prayer?
There are many. What's the plural of pshat? Pshatim? Pshatot?
Yeah.
Anyways, there are many pshatim, that we can take from this. Yes. One that I think constantly is my own spiritual connection with God, and when I'm praying. I have to say, and I have to admit, I consider myself a very lucky person. I'm healthy, I have a great job, great colleagues, well, so. And And, I've been blessed with wonderful kids, a wonderful partner, my wife. And I could say, life is good for me. Life has been good to me, coming from another country, doing really well. So when I pray, most of the time, I'm thankful. Okay? In those rare times when we are not leading services and there is a silent prayer and we can really connect and think about ourselves and things, I'm grateful. And eventually I have something that, please God, help me with such and such, please help this and that. But in a way, I connect with this prayer. Not literally, but in the spiritual manner of being grateful and appreciation every day for every single thing we had. Last night, we had Shabbat Alive outdoors. It was amazing. This idea, of being outdoors in community, praying, all the trees so green, and this blue sky, amazing. Just be thankful for everything.
So for you, you read this prayer as more just a general call to be aware and grateful for all the blessings, but not as much about the particular moment that you just had a bowel movement and you're thanking God for it.
Do you do that?
Yes, I think that's the pshat. I mean, colleagues, help me out here. What?
I mean,
Elisa, what do
let's
you,
go.
what do you think is the and because the really deep point about this prayer is that, you can't have a deeply satisfying spiritual life or spiritual exploration if you're constipated or, if you're constipated. I mean, constipation is like a deep problem. Especially if constipation goes on for a few days, it's a significant problem. And so don't talk to me about the Shema. Don't talk to me about the 13 attributes of God. I've got blockage. And so this prayer is just so real. Elisa, how do you see it?
I love this prayer. I love it. It feels important to just acknowledge the miracle of basic physical regularity. And that's our huge blessing. And so it feels deeply connective and deeply important to acknowledge the importance of physical processes.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to step back in our last conversation, hopefully in this format without our beloved people in person. Please God, September 10th, you're going to be in person. Please, please, please. We'll still live stream for those who won't or can't come. But for most of you who are watching, please come in person on September the 10th. That is us on our best day. So here's our last question in this kind of format, I hope, which is, how do these texts, however you read them, intersect with our broken world, right? So it's June 11th, 2022. It costs $75 to fill your car. More than 1 million Americans have died. There were 13 mass shootings last weekend alone. After all of the, Uvalde terror, New York says, okay, we're going to raise the age for somebody to get an assault rifle till 21 instead of 18, and that's considered sensible gun restrictions. And Tennessee says, we're going to harden our schools. We're going to give teachers more guns and more training in how to use those guns. And so I bring all this up to you to say, how does that affect the read of A Day at the Beach, whatever your read is of A Day at the Beach? Dan.
Yeah, I want to bring it a little bit more local. How the idea that it really, the complexity of live stream, not live stream, for example, that is both a physical and a psychological issue for many people, our members in terms of coming to shul, people going to work, etc. There's the question of connecting to people and how you lose that connection by staying at home too much, or by being locked out, in your workspace too much. So for us, for instance, we want people here in the building, and there are people that say, I want to be in the building, but now my mental state is such that even though I know it's safe, I'm not going to come back. So I think that it really does have a real intense effect COVID and everything else is going on in the world. Now, so aside from COVID, as you just mentioned, all these other problems that we have are just causing people to be more and more isolated. And so it's having a spiral, a downward gyre spiral. And so I think that it affects all of us, very personally as to how we're going to live the rest of our lives and pass that on to the next generation as well.
So, going back a little bit to your question, the real challenge here becomes we are all going to go to the beach in a certain way, in a different way, all right? And the point is, while we are at the beach and we are resting physically, how much can we disconnect from the reality and the world? Because there's always something that you say, okay, I don't want to read the news anymore for 6 days, 7 days, and then you feel, gee, there are so many problems in the world. I'm acting so indifferently to what is happening. Am I doing the right thing? The self-care versus, thinking more about your role in the world.
And I'll say the most beautiful and poignant text we didn't get to, which is the one from Yoma, where Rav Ami and Rav Asi have this dispute over what one should do when your heart is troubled. And, one of them says, get it out of your mind, go to the beach,
Right.
go escape, take it to a place where you're not thinking about it. And if it comes up, make sure to quash it down. And the other says you should talk to someone. You should process it. You should connect. And Dan, I think that speaks to the issue that you just brought up, right? What's our move when we are troubled, either by our own soul or by the world? It is to reach out, to connect, to engage, to talk to someone, and to work through together a possible new approach.
Aliza.
I think what comes up for me is that all of life is about balance. And so what's the measure of self-care and indulgence that's going to be life-affirming and life-supporting and that doesn't take you out of the game for too long? And it feels like the question of what enables you to make your physical body as healthy as possible, your mind as healthy as possible, your spirit as healthy as possible, while not overindulging and making sure that you still preserve some of your off time for helping the world and healing the world.
So here's what I want to say. Last word on this. I do think self-care is a big mitzvah, both because it's good for yourself inherently, like resting on Shabbat is itself a value because you're entitled to rest, and because it makes you productive the other 6 days of the week. Your self-care will allow you to give your gift to the world, your contribution, whatever you want that gift, that world to be. If you're renewed and recharged, I think that is shot in all these texts. And my specific message to all of you right now at 9:13 on June 11th is don't wait till September 10th to come to shul. Come to shul today in the next 13 minutes. We are having membership Shabbat, and the entire theme of this service today is members new and old are coming in who have trepidation, who haven't been around, who have been spending too much time alone, who've been spending too much time on a computer screen, who've been doing live stream and Zoom for 2 years and 4 months. And today is about saying, come home, let a house of assembly actually be a house of assembly, because there is nothing more renewing than that. Come to shul today, please. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat
everybody.
shalom, everyone.
Shalom.